I call Alfred Naro.
Mr Speaker, it's an honour to take a call this afternoon on the Social Security Fraud Measures and Debt Recovery Amendment Bill in its first reading. Mr Speaker, the speeches today, this afternoon on this bill have been truly a good Western, a combination of the good, the bad and truly the ugly. Mr Speaker, in saying that, I want to actually make comment with the New Zealand First member where she quoted Winston Churchill, and this is what she said: "Sometimes it is better to be irresponsible and right than be responsible and wrong." Mr Speaker, I find that very interesting that that member worked in the prison system with prisoners and rehabilitation, and knowing and very clearly that the system was those who were punished for doing wrong needed to be in their right place. If you do the crime, you do the time. I find that very interesting and very confusing, and that's probably something that confuses the member herself. She probably hasn't read the bill or the regulatory impact statement as well. Mr Speaker, the previous speaker was actually talking about the whole aspect of this bill and the importance of the bill. The bill brings new tools to prevent, detect, catch welfare fraud. It's pleasing to hear that the members on the other side, in fact, Jacinda Ardern actually said that they support the intent of the bill. I think there is common support intent of the bill, that this bill is that those who are defrauding the system, should be held to account. And as one who has read the regulatory impact statement, the consultation has been wide. All Crown entities have been consulted, hence the reason why it's going to the Select Committee. Then there will be further public consultation to hear the proposals at the Select Committee stage of the bill as well, and this becomes very important. But the vast majority of people who are on welfare, we want to say this, do declare their true circumstances. This is only a small minority who choose and have the intent to defraud the system. Mr Speaker, in the regulatory impact statement, it's really quite clear that in 2011 and 2012, 10,735 cases were investigated, resulting in 2,139 cases of overpayment being establishment. Mr Speaker, this is significant because that's a further of $18.4 million of debt that was established. Mr Speaker, what we're trying to say is that those who have caused this offence should be held to account. We are also being careful with that, Mr Speaker, because there has been some concern about those who are vulnerable in the system, especially in regards to domestic violence. There is a stronger focus in ensuring that we protect those. So the law is very clear that for welfare purposes, a violent relationship is not treated as a relationship when assessing their entitlement to a benefit. This will be good news to those who work in refuges, especially as those women who have been, through no fault of their own, have been in a situation in that relationship where there clearly is domestic violence. It is also important, as we do not want to remove a financial support which might help a woman who extract herself from an abusive relationship. Mr Speaker, this is an important bill, and what it also tackles, I want to address some of the issues in this debate about this bill around the comparison with the welfare fraud versus tax fraud. There's been a lot made. In fact, the concerns raised on the other side is that the government treats welfare fraudsters in a way which is more punitive than tax fraudsters. This is far from the truth, Mr Speaker. Our key messages as a government is this: the welfare and tax systems operate in different ways, and it is misleading to attempt to compare them. The government has a duty to ensure that our taxpayer money is being taken illegitimate. If it's taken illegitimately, to suggest we turn a blind eye is irresponsible, Mr Speaker. No one is disputing that tax fraud is a bigger issue than welfare fraud, and the government priorities reflect this. Over the last 4 budgets, the government has invested almost $200 million of new funding into tackling tax fraud, but put no new money into fighting welfare fraud. The IRD has an enforcement budget of $142 million, while MSD's enforcement budget is simply $30 million. There's concern about welfare fraud costs at $23 million a year, while tax fraud is at $1 billion. But, Mr Speaker, here's the response that we want to make it and to inform so there's some clarity here. No one is denying that tax fraud is a bigger problem, but this comparison is definitely misleading, Mr Speaker. It intends to compare welfare fraud. We could prove beyond reasonable doubt and prosecute it with an academic estimate of what tax fraud may exist. Mr Speaker, it's also important, we want to declare this, that the tools that are also here, Mr Speaker, is to allow that there's joint accountability. And we've heard from the Greens talk about this importance. In fact, it's the one thing that they do agree with, Mr. Speaker, so that no longer that it can be used just for a spouse in a violent relationship to then to dob in the other spouse. This time there will be shared accountability and responsibility for those that are found in this situation. Mr. Speaker, I want to then wrap up my speech because there was a comment that was made is that we on this side are benefit bashing. In fact, we've never used that. You can check all the Hansards on this side of the House. We've never used those words. We've never used those words. And in fact, what was also too of a concern is that they were appealing to us to look at our experiences of working in community. Mr. Speaker, I can honestly say that I've had a constituent that's come to my office over in Māngere and sat down with me, and through no fault of their own, we're in a circumstance where, Mr. Speaker, they were being investigated. We've sat down together, we've worked through the issues, and I'm pleased to say, Mr. Speaker, we're coming to a resolution in this situation. What that proves, Mr. Speaker, is this, is that the system that we're seeking, that for those that through no fault of their own, where they can be given a way of sort of mitigating their circumstances, then we are doing that. The system allows for that, Mr. Speaker, because this is what it's been set up. Mr. Speaker, finally, I just want to say that this system of checking out and catching out those who have defrauded the system is part of this government's way of looking at welfare. Will always be there to support our people in our community for those who need it. But anyone who can work should be in work or looking for work and employment opportunities. It's a comprehensive reform of the whole of the welfare system. Mr. Speaker, I commend this bill to the House.
I understand the next call is a split call. The Honourable David Cunliffe.
It is, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this bill, but I do so